Hello and welcome to another update video about Bitcoin. So on the daily chart here, Bitcoin is showing still our 1-2-1-2 setup. The second wave 1 is likely not finished yet, and the wave 2 afterwards is still supposed to start at some point. In the short term, it was and is expected still to push a little higher. Bitcoin is in the mood today. We see a little bit of green across the market. All of that in line with our scenarios, also on the micro levels. Okay, we have our Elliott Wave triangle that we talked about yesterday, which could break to the upside today if it continues like that. We'll see. Of course, we do not want to say it will break out because, you know, nobody knows the future, but we'll have a look and take a look at the relevant levels that need to hold for this triangle to break to the upside. It's a more simplified wave count that I introduced a few days ago. And yeah, surely, I mean, in that mess that we currently see on the 1 hour chart, different scenarios are surely possible. So what do we have here? We have our 1-2-1-2 setup on the daily chart still. Bitcoin is just about to make another 2023 high, hasn't made it yet, needs to push a little higher for that. That is our primary scenario. And on the daily chart, it looks really as if the, the second wave 1 there has completed all the requirements of a 5-wave move. And, you know, to be honest, if you're just analyzing the daily chart, it probably is the case. I also would count it as a completed wave 1 if we now saw already the pullback in the wave 2 a little earlier than anticipated. So I would still count it as a wave 2 correction already. The wave 1 to the upside, again, looks like a 5-wave move. And if a pullback occurs, it ideally would be corrective. The way the proportions are at the moment, the Elliott wave or the wave proportions, indicate that in a wave 2, we should ideally see a higher low, because at the moment, the second wave 1 or the lower degree wave 1 is shorter than the main wave 1. And it is shorter to a degree that's absolutely acceptable and ideal. So what we don't really want is that the wave 1 of the larger degree third wave unfolds and extends beyond the 78.6 Fibonacci extension. That's at 43K. We ideally want to avoid that, okay, because then it gets a corrective look. That's why we've got our alternative B wave here. It's only an alternative at this stage. Ideally, we get maybe another extension, so the smaller time frame extends, or ideally extends a little higher, and then possibly into this region between the 61.8 extension. So we are above that level again, but not sustained yet above that level, and 43K. We also have this ascending trend line. Ideally, we get a little bit of a throw over here before we then come down into this support area. So maybe to 41K, we talked about that before. What I'd like to avoid is a break above 43K. That would be very bullish in the short term, but would increase the risk overall on the daily time frame of a larger pullback, because if this is a B wave, we have to consider a bunch of other options, which would be short-term bullish, yes, but then will make the entire road 125K much more difficult and challenging. So now that we've talked about the daily chart, let's take a look at our shorter time frame structures. So let's go to the 4-hour chart, and here we're still dealing here with our 5-wave move to the upside. So to keep it very simple, still watching for another extension higher. But as you can see here, it's already done what it needs to do. We've got a wave 1, we've got a wave 2, we've got a wave 3, 4 as a running flat, and the wave 5 still to come. You can count this as impulsive. You can also count it as diagonal. With my latest, or earlier the week, I introduced that triangle with the latest introduction of that triangle, which is a barrier triangle, an ascending triangle, where basically waves B and D are very close together. We can also see this as a diagonal. Okay, 3 waves A, B, C in wave 1, 3 waves in wave 2, 3 waves in wave 3, 3 waves in wave 4, and then an A, B, C structure in wave 5, so 3 waves as well. So it's a 3, 3, 3, 3, 3 structure. And yeah, it can ideally take us towards 41, 42K before we finally start our wave 2 pullback. And again, that support zone for the wave 2 is between 27,360 and 32,580. That would be ideal in terms of a pullback. Okay, so if we then zoom in here, we can see that we are nearly about to break out. So triangle count certainly seems to be working out at the moment. How did the triangle count work? So obviously we had our wave 4 down here, and then obviously we need to look for an ABC structure to the upside. So A wave up, yeah. Then this sideways B wave triangle, a B wave can be a triangle, and then a C wave to the upside. Yeah, other interpretations are always possible. You can always, when you're dealing with corrective structures, you can ask, I don't know, 5 different Elliott Wave analysts. They give you 5 different counts. Just make sure it's a valid count. But yeah, this is a so-called barrier triangle where we had our small A wave, that's a corrective move. Then here a B wave, ABC, then ABC in wave C, ABC in wave D. D ends below B, just about. Yeah. That's always important, even though, I mean, we need, practical intelligence is always more important than just sort of academic or book intelligence. So sometimes you will see that maybe the D wave goes a little above the B. I would then not automatically rule it out, because crypto is a little bit like the Wild West. Remember, I'm looking at the Bitcoin index chart here. So it could be that on some exchanges it's the case. On some exchanges it's not the case, but here it's not the case. Yeah, the D ends just below B. And also, it's fine. And it's a so-called barrier triangle, okay? And then the E wave to the downside here was shallow, but that's fine. E waves, it could still be ongoing, right? But it's an ABC structure here at the moment that I showed you yesterday. We talked about yesterday in this E wave about this ABC structure that includes here this A wave as a flat, then the B wave, and then here a C wave down. But possibly if it's finished already, it's likely a WXY structure. Okay, so, but that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter at all for the overall analysis. So W, ABC in wave W, X, and then Y of E. Oops. Of E. So let's put that white. Oops. And then, yeah, we could be in the breakout now. The first, I made you aware of this descending wedge to take a look. Reacted, yeah. And we are now approaching the beginning of the wedge. So a break, to be technically correct, we already broke above the D wave high. We have not broken above the B wave high, because the B wave high is a little higher. So above the B wave high, we've got 38,446. If that is taken out, then the triangle is technically broken. And then ideally, we're pushing higher and get that breakout done. So we'll see if that works out. Obviously, for this wave count to stay intact and valid, we need to stay now above the E wave low. That's at 37,480. Below that level, we've got the C wave low at 36,730 as key support. That's my update about Bitcoin. Hope you liked the update. If you did, please hit the like button, leave a comment and subscribe. And if you really like the content, then please check out the channel membership. Also make sure that you follow us on Instagram and Twitter. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye-bye.